Welcome to This Week in Morton County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber, and our guest this week is Joe Herrmann of Sam and Joe Herrmann and the Critton Hollow String Band of neighboring Hampshire County, West Virginia. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure having you. Now, people watching this know Critton Hollow String Band. They've been to your concerts. You just were here recently at the granary across the way. How did you all get started?
Goodness, I started playing music when I was 12 years old.
Where were you when you were 12 years old?
Baltimore.
You grew up in Baltimore, born and raised in Baltimore? What was the work of your parents?
My father was a lawyer and my mother was a well-kept housewife.
And how many kids did they have?
I'm the youngest of three brothers.
Okay. Are you all playing music?
No, our middle brother didn't play,
Okay.
and my older brother still plays. And I feel really fortunate in the music that I just happened to be the age of the folk craze in the 60s.
Right.
And there was just, everybody was, well, I got interested because my older brother's 5 years older than me. He and his friends were playing guitars and banjos and singing folk songs, and then there was all the records and Peter, Paul, and Mary and the Kingston Trio, and then the people were starting to discover Doc Watson, and all the folk music was just going nuts, and my mother was really into it.
Oh, it was your mother's, I mean, because there was also rock and roll in the 60s, which was the bigger deal.
The folk craze was before that. So that's when I was saying I feel really fortunate to have been the age I was when certain things happened. So the early 60s is, I guess, what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The folk music craze, I guess Kingston Trio.
And you started playing, what brought you to West Virginia? I mean, how did Critton Hollow, where was Critton Hollow started?
Okay, so a big jump.
Yeah.
I won't
take us through it. No, I want to know.
Well, okay, so I was going to say, in terms of timing, then came around all the great rock and roll. And I bought an electric guitar and a big amplifier that I could stand in front of. Yeah. I would mention in that era, especially John Fogerty and Creedence Clearwater. They were so accessible and the music was so great that I think I really was influenced by that particularly. But all that great music. And then I got more serious and I got a teacher that was like the #1 jazz player in Baltimore. And he gave me lessons, and I actually applied to Berklee School of Music and was accepted, but my father wasn't back in that venture. So
how much was it back then?
I don't remember.
So he wasn't going to pay for it?
Not the music thing, no. So anyway, I ended up in West Virginia through a small series of small coincidences that put me and Sam together and brought us to Critton Hollow.
Which is in Hampshire County.
Hampshire County.
And the band is named after the place.
It's not the other way around.
Not the other way around.
Correct.
Now, so Daddy was a lawyer, and he said, "My son's not going to play music."
No, he wasn't. It wasn't totally against music. He just wasn't going to pay for college music, jazz music. Now, if I'd have been a classical violinist, he'd have been paying for that.
Okay.
But I wasn't anywhere close to that, and I didn't want to be close to that.
How would you, now there's all kinds of terms for the kinds of music that Critton Hollow plays, and people call it old time, folk, country, bluegrass, Appalachian. What is it? What is
you got like 7 names
out
of 6 words. That was great. What is it? It's acoustic, and it's all those things kind of blended together. And old-time music was a very specific inspiration to the music that Sam and I started to play, which is the fiddle tunes, the music that preceded bluegrass even. And so our first love in that vein was what we ran into when we went to Galac's Fiddlers Convention and heard people playing old-time fiddle tunes. It's just more like dance music and straight-up tunes. So I started teaching myself to play the fiddle. She started teaching herself to play the hammer dulcimer. And so we were learning together and just playing all the time.
And I guess it's called folk music because it's people picking up some wood and some strings and playing
Yeah.
or something like that.
Right. And acoustic, it's all based on acoustic music. You know, so all of our instruments are acoustic. Whether they're mic'd or not, they're still acoustic.
What is, all right, so there is that split. I mean, even CCR was considered rock and roll, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there's a continuum as in everything.
In my musical journey, I think there is. That's why I mentioned Creedence Clearwater and John Fogerty, because their music is so basic, and it's really very simple, but it's just directed so well musically. The inspiration of John Fogerty and his creation of music, and that's what I found in old time fiddle tunes. It's not complicated, but it's pure and it's straight up.
Right. When I went, I really enjoyed your concert at the Granary the other night.
Thank you.
But it made me think because a big deal on this is when Dylan went to Newport or wherever in the '60s and brought out his electric guitar, and he was known as a folk musician before that, I guess. And you were plugged in at the Granary. You had a plug-in.
Yeah.
So there is. What are your thoughts on that whole thing? On getting back to it as opposed to plugging in electrical.
Well, the way I was plugged in at the Granary was I don't use any finger picks, so I'm just using the skin of my fingers. And sometimes I just have been frustrated so many times that the guitar gets buried under everything else. And the Granary's pretty. I have played there without anything. And that's what we had planned to do the other night. But I recently put some works in here, a mic, so that I would not be so frustrated in situations where everybody else is plugged in and I'm trying to get this to come out of a microphone and it's not happening. It just can't happen that way. So I've got some internal works that now can give me just enough. And what I had at the Granary was just enough to complement the natural sound of the guitar. And Dylan's plugging in was completely different. He was playing I'm not sure, but probably a solid body electric guitar that was totally dependent on the amplification that was coming out of those speakers.
Do you remember that incident?
No, I wasn't paying attention at
Okay.
that time to that particular thing. I certainly have heard about it over and over, and I've heard stories about what might have gone on backstage.
When your fans, and you've been all over the world, you've been Canada, UK, and so forth. When people think, your fans hear Critton Hollow, what songs do they think of? What are you known for?
Oh, let's see, fans.
Well, you do have fans. I mean,
I'll take your word.
I was with Genesee the other day, and I told her about this interview, and she was really excited about it. So there are people who follow you and like your music.
Okay. The very first song I ever learned was John Henry, and it's to this day remained a favorite. I love to sing it all the time. And
Can you play a little?
I'd do it on the banjo.
Okay, on the banjo.
So,
What can you play for us here that would remind us of Critton Hollow?
Let's see. Here. There's one that Sam and I sing together called Going Away, which is a Utah Phillips song.
Could you just a little bit of that?
Yeah, actually, I had this set up different. Is that the moon I see over there in the west, or just the headlights gleam? To C&O Express, I know she's gone. Whatever I say, and it won't be long until I make up my mind and go away.
Utah Phillips.
Utah Phillips, bless his heart.
of the old time people you play, it's Utah, Philip. I've heard you play. Name some of them. Name some of the old timers you like to play.
Oh, put me on a spot like that. I'd have to start thinking.
Well, Woody, right? You play
Woody Guthrie. Thank you very much. Yeah, Woody Guthrie. Woody Guthrie has definitely been an influence on me. No bragging rights there, because I'm one of thousands and thousands that have been influenced by Woody Guthrie or influenced by people that Woody Guthrie influenced. And what that to me is honesty. That's what I see in his music, honesty. You know, he's not the greatest singer or the greatest guitar player. He may be the greatest songwriter. We'll certainly give him that. But it's not dependent on technique. It's like when honesty shines through.
I'm a big Baltimore Orioles baseball fan.
I used to be too.
And my son went to a game, and I was listening on the radio while he was at the game. And in the seventh inning, often at baseball games, they play "God Bless America."
Oh, really?
Or or patriotic songs like that.
Really?
And
it's been that long since I've been
in
there.
the seventh inning of this game, they were playing "This Land Is Your Land," and I found out that the owners of the Orioles want to mix it up a little, and so there was Woody Guthrie in front of. Yeah, exactly.
Whose version was it?
I don't
Woody
know.
Guthrie?
I don't know whose version it was, but they were playing it.
That's great.
Yeah. Now we used to go to your place, Critton Hollow, when our boys were young, and what I remember about it was there was a whole community of music players.
Hampshire County is thriving with music players, fiddles and banjos and old-time tunes. That's what they like to do, and they'll sing a song every once in a while.
And this is a community of musicians that come to your place, or how does it work?
No, mostly we go to another place. There's a fellow named Paul Roomsberg that has a little cabin, and everybody just refers to it as the cabin. And there's no electricity there, and there's a wood stove in there, so we're sitting in there in a snowstorm with the wood stove going and the kerosene lanterns burning, and anywhere from 6 to 26 people are in there.
And people playing.
People playing. Yeah, everybody's playing generally. I mean, there might be 3 or 4 people that have come that don't play, but mostly they're all playing.
How would you I mean, I was thinking driving here, this music is not on the radio for the most part.
Right.
It's rock and roll. It's, everything but this music. And why do you think that is? Why is that the case?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't really know. And it's often when I talk about fiddle music, you might not understand unless you're in the midst of it. But it's not, the best part about it is doing it. So if you go to a festival, people are grouped up in, maybe 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, maybe a big 15 person, but they're jamming together and they're playing. And there's not a whole lot of interest in people standing there listening to them generally, but they're focused on this thing that they're doing over and over again, and they're just working to make it as good as they can. And it is a beautiful thing to listen to, but it's not something that the general populace would understand musically. Not that it's that complicated, but it's maybe because there's too much flash. Television steals things, and pop music can steal. It can just suck all the energy away from things that are more simple, more basic. Are
you seeing? So, would you say that the average age of people you play with is in their 60s or 70s? Or
that's an interesting thing too, and I've seen this with music throughout my life. So there was this big folk music craze that I talked about in the early 60s.
And those was primarily younger people.
Younger people, but they were getting it from all the older people that had done it. And there were some middle ground people. There's always some, but it goes in these waves. And then this fiddle music that I'm talking to, and these conventions, fiddle conventions that we all go to and play with each other. when I started, and I was like 25 when I started in the fiddle music, and there was a big gap of middle-aged people that were missing, but there was a whole wealth of older people, and people were visiting them and recording them and bringing them out, and then that wave that I was in kind of went on for a while, and then it seemed to die out. So now behind me, there's not so many people in the middle-aged bracket, but there's a lot of young people coming up now. So it's just, you watch these waves.
You're seeing younger people come
Yeah,
in.
many younger people.
You spent a considerable amount of time in visiting Canada during the Critton Hollow career. What were you doing in Canada? What was going on there?
We were invited to play some of their the Winnipeg Folk Festival and the Vancouver Folk Festival. We played those. Those are major folk festivals.
And then I read something where also that you went. There were like these house parties, or tell us about that. What is that?
Yeah, there's a tradition there's this concept of a house concert, and it's a wonderful thing. Somebody opens their house to their friends and other ones that want to come. You maybe get 20, 25, 30, 40 people, however many can fit in there. And you do a concert, and it's really beautiful because it's an intimate audience. Everything's acoustic. There's no need to plug in anything, and everybody's right there. And it's a real close contact between the musicians and the audience. So anyway, this Mitch Badalik, who actually ran the Winnipeg Folk Festival, created this concept, and he calls it Home Roots Canada.
Home Roots.
So he's collected people that are interested to put on concerts, and he's also got contacts with musicians all over the world. So he's created, they, the Home Roots, it's a lot of work goes into this. I don't know how many, 6, 8, 9, I don't know how many routes across Canada. And they're, we did one in Cape Breton and Prince Edward Island. They call it the Maritimes Tour. So these people sign up for the concerts, they put them all in a line, and then they do each of these mini tours does 6 of them a year, September, October, November, and then February, March, and April. And so and they're for 2 weeks. And you go from one house to the next, and they have it so organized that you generally don't have to drive more than an hour. Sometimes you might have to go 3.
And you play music for a group of people, then they put you up for the night?
They put you up, they feed you, and
do
they invite all their friends.
Pay you?
They charge $20 a head and give us all the money. We kick back a percentage to Home Roots. They buy our CDs, we kick back a percentage of that to Home Roots. That's how they maintain. They also get Canadian grants, I think. They're supported. Yeah.
How often do you do that?
About every 2 years they want to have us. They have such a stable of musicians, so we've done 2 of them, and I'll be in contact with them soon to do another one. The first one we did was in February in Winnipeg and in Manitoba and Saskatchewan.
Well, I mean...
Some people called it a tour, Sam called it an adventure, and I called it I don't know what I call it.
Did you get stuck in the snow up there?
No, we did great. Well, at the very end we did, but we were already done all the concerts.
What about, have you seen this movie, A Mighty Wind?
Yeah.
It was like a mockumentary.
That movie scared me because I was sitting there watching that and going, wow, that sounds really good. I was like, I've done that.
They were mocking musicians. Okay, so did you take that personally?
No, it was great. It was great.
So you like the movie?
Is that a Coen Brothers?
Yeah, I forget the name of the producer, but they do that kind of mockumentary.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was all really great.
Okay.
And it was, and everybody that was doing those things were, they could musically do them very well.
All right. Well, let's talk Critton Hollow a little bit. Who has been in the band? I mean, give us the chronology of who's in the band.
First time we were called Critton Hollow was Sam and I. We went off in our Volkswagen bus, painted red, white, and blue and yellow, to tour in October. We were headed for Key West, and we took a friend of ours, Robbie Gordon, the three of us went down there, and we were kind of new, just soaking up music, and that's what we did. We were like practicing and studying. We toured. We just invented where we would play. We'd call up a health food restaurant and say, hey, we play music, and we suggest that you feed us and let us come there and play music and pass our hat. And they'd always say, sure, sounds like a great idea. So that was the kind of thing we did. Went all the way to Key West. Anyway, by the time we got back home, Sam and I went up to Cool Font. Said, maybe we could play up there. And there was this guy, Dave Adams, that seemed to be waiting for us. We walked in the door and said, well, we play music. And he said, I love Hammer Dulcimer. You guys, oh, I'd love to have you come play here. Play every Sunday. So we played every Sunday, probably for like 3 or 4 hours. And they fed us, gave us all the beer we could drink. And we did that probably for a couple years. Just the two of us, and we were calling ourselves Critton Hollow. Okay. Critton Hollow String Band. And then eventually we met another fellow from over in Cape and Bridge named Michael Klein, who became our first third member. We did some stuff with him, and then Sam's brother, when he got out of prison, became our guitar player. Excellent musician, singer, guitar player. And then his wife, who had to cart him around because he was still on probation, I had a bass, and I said, here, Patty, do this. And she was really good at it, so she became our bass player, and that's who recorded our first record, Sam, Arnold, Patty, and myself. We recorded it at the Star Theater in January of 1979.
What was the name of that record?
Poor Boy.
Poor Boy, okay. All right, and then?
We never stopped.
Kept going.
Yeah.
Well, who else? So Arnold and Patty. Arnold and Patty,
that kind of exploded in its own way. And, but then we had just met Joe Fallon. And this would have been about 1980. So we had been playing with Arnold and Patty for 2 or 3 years maybe. Anyway, Joe Fallon came along, so he was the perfect addition to Sam and myself. His good friend was Pete Gordon. So I'd probably met Pete, but then because Joe was there, we all got together and started playing music. So that became the next quartet that recorded records. Pete Gordon, Joe Fallon, Sam, and myself.
And now what is it?
Now, Pete went on to become a full-time teacher, and Joe Fallon is still with us. So we're basically a trio, but now Pete's retired, and we have done and we'll do a few things with Pete as that quartet.
What if people want to look forward to where you'll be playing? You have a website, CrittonHollow.org.com, and
not too organized.
And people can buy CDs off the website. Tons and tons of them. Yeah. And then where are you going to be? Where are you going to be touring?
Touring. There's not a whole lot of touring going on. I got to tell you.
Well, people can catch you around here, obviously, because you play here periodically. You play
periodically, but we try to keep it. I don't want to wear anybody out on me, or anybody I might be playing music with. The other night you saw me with David McLaughlin and Marshall Wilburn, and that's just something else I do, and that's pure pleasure. Those guys are just fantastic. But one thing I can mention is in Hampshire County at the Bottling Works on November 7th, we'll be playing there with Pete Gordon and Joe Fallon as that quartet of Critton Hollow.
All right. Well, we got like a minute and a half left. Why don't you take us out with something you'd like to play for us? Okay,
you mentioned that might happen.
Yeah.
So something that this would be Bob Dylan's Forever Young, kind of a benediction. May God bless and keep you always, may your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars, climb on every rung. May you stay forever young. May you stay forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surrounding you. May you always be courageous, stand upright and be strong. May you stay forever young. May you stay forever young. May your hands always be busy, may your feet always be swift. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of changes shift. May your heart always be joyful, may your song always be sung. May you stay forever young. May you stay forever young, forever young, forever young. May you stay forever young.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Joe, thanks for coming in. Until next week, I'm Russell Mokhiber, and this is This Week in Morgan County.